But let's get to our guest, Jon Krawczynski, the big Timberwolves writer for The Athletic, also covers some of the Vikings. How have you been doing? I know we mentioned a little bit about this before we started this, but how have you been doing without any sports?
Yeah, it's certainly been an adjustment, for a life that it kind of revolves around sports and has for a long, long time, to not have those games to go to write about, to not just have, a West Coast NBA game to throw on at 9:30 at night after the kids have gone to bed and you're just unwinding and trying to relax from the day. It's a huge difference. I mean, I really do think that everyone knew what sports meant to our society and what kind of a pivotal role it plays in just entertainment and giving everyone a little bit of a distraction and a release. But I really think that now that it's been taken away for so long, I just think it really underscores, just what a valuable thing it is for so many of us who either make a living off of it or just want to have something to be entertained by and have something to kind of get their minds off of the struggles of the day to day. And so it's been a really big adjustment. And to be honest, I don't know that I'm used to it yet. Yeah. And I hope I never do get used to it, and hopefully we get it back sooner than later.
Yeah. Jon, my first question for you is it's non-sports related, but do people ever get you confused with Jim from The Office? It's probably a question you could ask. Yeah.
Yeah, all the time. On Twitter, people will kind of start to you put stuff out for me saying they loved me in The Office or they loved his latest movie that came out, or he's got this thing right now with some good news. That's kind of a big thing.
I actually wonder how close your guys' handles are to one another. They must be pretty close.
It's kind of close, but yeah, and so if you spell it like we spell our first names, he's a J-O-H-N, I'm a J-O-N, and so if whoever is looking for him spells his name Jon and then goes to K, my handle pops up. And so it gets I get in there and I get stuff for some good news. I get stuff for Jack Ryan. I get stuff for for The Office, all sorts of stuff.
And naturally it probably happens the other way around too, right? Someone's trying to tweet about The Office and they're like, I really loved you in The Office, and then they or they tag you or whatever,
Yeah, I kind of always joke that, I wonder if whenever I'm writing a big story about Jimmy Butler requesting a trade or something like that, if the other Jon Krawczynski gets Timberwolves questions sent his way or not. I have not met him or gotten any response yet, but you never know. So
yeah, you might just have to hit him up one day and be like, hey, nice name.
Yeah, that's right.
You got any questions that were probably meant for me, you can send them my way. Any weird Minnesota Timberwolves related questions, just send them my way. I was gonna say, it's weird, when I was really young, I feel kind of embarrassed because the first time I heard you coming on Barrero, I'm like, wait, they're getting Jim from The Office on there, what does that do with anything? But I was younger, but then I realized, okay, yeah, Johnny Athletic, the guy who writes the bomb-ass Timberwolves articles. So but yeah, going off on Barrero, I heard you on you have many you go on the Dan Barrero show a lot, and you have a lot of really interesting conversations. But one that really caught my ear one time was you're discussing about the debate between the basketball state and the state of hockey one time, on how people really think that this is a hockey state, but there really is a big following for basketball in the state, despite the negativity around the Timberwolves. I mean, discuss more about that and what you explain on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I grew up here. I'm from Blaine, and so for most of my life, I've lived in Minnesota, and so I'm certainly well aware of the rich tradition that hockey has in this state. But at the same time, and before I kind of get into my little rant that I always get into, I have to preface it by saying I grew up loving hockey. I watched the state hockey tournament. My dad and I would watch Gopher hockey games all the time, and some of my best memories are watching these games. But I think as I've gotten older, and certainly as I've gravitated to covering the NBA and covering the Timberwolves for a living, you do notice in this state that the hockey fan really likes to look down its nose at the basketball fan, and they like to tell you that no one cares about basketball in the state and no one really pays attention to it, and that just isn't true. I think nobody cares about bad basketball. That's true. The Timberwolves do not have a great following right now because they've been generally terrible for the last 15 years. But I do think that when you get good basketball, the community really comes out for it. And it really, you also look at high school basketball now. I mean, you're getting major Division I recruits that are coming out of the state regularly. If you go outside of the suburban area to the smaller towns, most of them are basketball towns and not hockey towns. I mean, you have Duluth, and you have some of the other outstate, Moorhead and some hockey towns, but a lot of places don't have the resources for hockey, and so they're playing basketball all winter. And so there's just is this really vibrant, passionate basketball community, and there are more basketball fans probably than there are hockey fans in the state. It's just that basketball fans, and especially pro basketball fans, have been beaten down for so long by the Timberwolves struggles that they're sort of just quiet. They don't like to come out and really say it.
Exactly.
And and I think that if the Wolves ever got to a point where they were consistently really good and winning playoff series and things, I think you would see everyone come out of the woodwork and really kind of show all the love that there is for that sport in this town.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point. It almost seems like Minnesota sports fans are kind of bandwagon to like the best team in terms of popularity because the Vikings never used to be the most I mean, with the state of hockey, you mentioned with the Wild, but then recently with, the surge in, the Vikings success, it's almost like the popularity has unplugged myself.
Oh, geez, Jack. Unplug himself.
The popularity has kind of shifted, to like football, as opposed to and then when the Vikings are, not even winning a few games in the season, going through a rebuilding year, you don't see as many people congregating around football. So it's just it's a trend almost, and and I guess what's going on.
Yeah, and I think that to the Vikings' credit, they have been consistently very good for a long time. I mean, they'll have a bad year once in a while, but they're not stacking 3-13 and 4-12 and 5-11s. It's if they have one bad year, they're bouncing back up to 9-7, 12-4, 13-3 to kind of give the fan the confidence that all of the financial resources that they invest in either going to a game or buying a nice TV to watch them, it's going to be worth their while. They're going to be entertained, and they're going to watch a team that is competitive and has a chance every week to win and to go to the playoffs and win as well. Now, yes, the Vikings have broken fans' hearts in the biggest of moments, but guess what? They've gotten to a bunch of NFC title games. They've been very good, but people forget that before Randy Moss came along in '98, there was sort of a lull in fan interest, and they were not selling out games, and they were not this just really dominant force in the sporting landscape of the Twin Cities as they are now. Now the NFL has exploded in popularity, but the Vikings have also shown that they are always going to be a franchise that is not going to, really kind of make you hate yourself for watching them. I mean, the Timberwolves have had really awful seasons, and a lot of them. The Vikings have had one or two bad ones here or there, but always have backed that up by having pretty darn good ones and really competitive ones. So, it's just a testament to the staying power of that franchise and how well they've done. If the Wolves ever got to a point where they were consistently going to the Western Conference Finals, even if they were falling short there'd be a tremendous following for them here. That's just what has to happen.
Yeah, just like the early 2000s. Like I can be a voice for that. Like when I was a kid, like in the early 2000s, like I was a huge Kevin Garnett fan.
Oh yeah, I think every kid that grew up around here had a Garnett jersey in the closet.
I probably loved them as much as hockey. Like I was a big Wild fan as a kid, but it just ever since they got worse and worse and consistent of they're going to be good in a couple years and then they just keep dropping. I lost hope. But I mean, going off from that, I mean, do you foresee like the Timberwolves kind of coming over that hump in the next like few years, getting D-Lo? I mean, it's hard to say, but I mean, do you see them like in the foreseeable future possibly making a run in the playoffs?
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly what they have yet. I think they're still going to make a lot of changes to the roster, but I will say that the roster as it's constructed now, after getting D'Angelo Russell, after getting Malik Beasley, James Johnson, guys like that, they made a ton of changes in February at the trade deadline. It better fits the style of play that they want to kind of put out there on the court, and it's definitely more conducive to success in the modern NBA. This is a team that now is going to shoot a bunch of threes, and for the last 4 or 5 years at least, they've been a team that does not shoot many threes, and so every night they were going into games having a math problem to solve, is how they were going to make up the biggest gap when they're facing the Warriors and the Rockets and all these teams that are shooting 43s a night, and the Wolves are shooting 10 or 12. It's just really hard to kind of keep up from a math perspective there. But Gerson Rosas and Ryan Saunders have implemented a much more modern style that's much more applicable to today's game. And now they finally have some pieces who can actually shoot it from the outside as well, to give them a chance. And so, is the Towns, Russell, Beasley core going to be the one that carries them into title contention like KG and Spree and Cassell? I don't know if we can say that yet, but I do think that you can look at that and say, here's the outline of a team that in a few years can be more of a factor, and one that you can't so easily ignore. And so I think they're on the right track that way, with still a lot of work to be done.
Well, I was going to ask just super crazy question. I know it's crazy, super big hypothetical, but in your personal opinion, you're a big Wolves guy, you're a big basketball guy. Do you see an NBA championship from the Timberwolves before a Vikings Super Bowl or a Wild Stanley Cup? I mean, just hypothetically. I don't know.
This is the live stream to put it out there.
This is just to put it out there.
I haven't started drinking yet on this Friday night, guys, so I can't make that bold statement. But I mean, look, here's the thing: like, it's harder to win an NBA championship than it is a Stanley Cup or a Super Bowl. I mean, you have seen in the NFL all the parity that's involved in that league, that from one year to the next, you see teams come out of nowhere and win a ton of games and get to a Super Bowl and win it. In the NHL with the Stanley Cup, if you get a hot goaltender and you get a team that just has a little bit of puck luck, like they like to say, and gets on a roll momentum wise, an 8 seed can run through the tournament and win the whole thing. We've seen it happen that way. In the NBA, it's so much harder because one player in the NBA can influence a game and an outcome to such a degree. So you need LeBron James, you need Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, and the Wolves don't have that yet, and those are really hard to find.
Comparing to the NBA to other leagues, and I think you kind of mentioned this in the beginning, but it seems like the NBA just has these like superpowers, and you need so much to stack up against teams like teams like the Rockets, typically the Warriors, teams like the Lakers even this year. I mean, they just have all these a few major players, and that's kind of where you went back to with the core. Like, is the core strong enough to go up against the powers that be? That's like the toughest question, I think, or the toughest part of that answer.
For sure, yeah. And look, Towns and Russell are 24 years old. So when they're 27, and in their real primes, and they're, fully grown adults and have a better understanding of everything and have worked on their games, maybe they do blossom to that point. Yeah. Maybe they get to a point where they are the formidable tandem, and they're the ones that are looked at as just too hard to handle. Yeah. But right now they're not there yet in their development. And so right now you see it. It's LeBron James and Anthony Davis. It's, last year was Curry, Thompson, Durant. Going forward next year, it'll probably be Durant and Irving. And, there are all these little clusters of stars, Giannis and Chris Middleton. These are guys that are a little bit older, that have been around a little bit more, and have more muscle in their body, have more understanding of what it takes to win and lose. And I just think that Towns and Russell are just in their formative stages still. And so we have to see how they learn and how they adapt, and if they have what it takes to kind of take the next leap from really good players, from all-star caliber players, to elite players who can win games for their teams and carry their teams into the playoffs and deep into the playoffs.
Yep. And, John, the next question I'm going to ask is super cliche, but since you're a basketball expert, we have to get your answer. MJ or LeBron?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Jordan guy. I'm 41 years old, so I kind of came up in the height of the Jordan era. And, I think when the thing that gets difficult here is when you're talking about Jordan or LeBron, one of the best players ever. If I take Jordan, it doesn't mean that I think LeBron is trash.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
It's like, we think that I think he's number 2 ever in the history of the league, which is remarkable. But I just think that Jordan had an effect on the league and an effect on the growth of the game. And then certainly from a competitive aspect, a level that no other player in this modern era has reached. I mean, 6 championships, and we're watching the Last Dance documentary now. Yeah, and I do think it's a good reminder, because it's natural. Jordan hasn't played for a long, long time. So it's natural for people and younger people who never really saw him at his peak to not really be able to grasp exactly what he was. And so what I hope is with this documentary is people watch this and say, holy cow, like this guy was really kind of something that no one's ever seen before. And so he just was at a different level, I think, than anybody has been, defensively, offensively, winning games, winning championships, marketing himself and turning himself into a brand. All of the things that we do see the LeBrons and the Currys and the Durants do now, Jordan did before anyone else had ever done it. And so I just think that if I have to pick, he's the guy that I'm going with. I think in this day and age, he would thrive even more so than he did back then. And so, I'll always be a Jordan guy, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I even though like people our age like grew up around in the LeBron James era, it's hard for a lot of people our age to really see like how, like you said, how good he truly was.
I think you had to just, instead of just seeing the highlights and comparing that, you had to, like you said, witness a full game and just see the way he played over a period of time too.
Or watch Space Jam.
Oh yeah,
that's right.
Well, you have to put that into effect. But I think LeBron's going to be in a new Space Jam, so that could be an interesting thing to compare.
Then it's going to be a battle between MJ and LeBron on the court, but then there's Space Jams as well. Like I can
throw that variable in the mix, 100%.
Going off like from speaking of like all your experiences from like you talked about when we were talking about like core players that really influence a team. I know one player here that a couple years ago only played here a season, Jimmy Butler. I think a lot of us know about him. I mean, tell us about any like encounters you had with him. I mean, were you ever in a locker room with the guy? I mean, what was the locker room like with a player like that?
Yeah, I mean, I was around him all the time. And it's really interesting. He is a guy who I always got along very well with. He's a straight talking dude. Yeah. There are plenty of times where you would be there with him and he would be kind of giving you his perception of reality. And you look at him and say, that doesn't jive with what I'm seeing at all. Like that's totally off the mark. But then there's other times where he's super charismatic, really funny, really intelligent, a magnetic personality. And so, even the thing that was most interesting to me during that whole saga was this is a guy who was requesting a trade, really trying to submarine an entire season to force the Timberwolves to move him out of there. And yet a lot of the teammates that he had in that locker room still love him to death to this day. Yeah. No one took, or there are a few, of course, that took it personally and obviously did not see eye to eye with him and didn't get along with him. But there were a bunch of others who were like, man, I love this guy. I'll go to war with him. I'm not going to hold anything against him for the business side of it, getting into the equation with him. And I always just thought that was weird, because if one of my teammates really is openly trying to flush one of my seasons down the toilet, I think I would get pretty upset with it. But it's just the way that Jimmy was. Like he is a dude that is really easy to like. And there is a lot of drama that you have to endure with him. But that's kind of the nature of the NBA star in today's age. Like almost all of them, LeBron, Durant, Kyrie, Derrick Rose, pick anyone who has been in that really elite level, James Harden, they all have their things you have to deal with.
Put up with, exactly.
Because and look, the nature is they're so good that generally most of them are worth it. Now Jimmy and the way that he went about things, I don't agree with it. I think that it was the wrong way to do it. I think it damaged his credibility a little bit in the end, but it's not unique in the NBA lexicon for a star player to be difficult to deal with.
Well,
and so that's part of it.
Even when TNT announces basketball's on, they say they always use drama with the NBA. Like, it's part of it. It's their brand as a sport. The players,
no doubt,
their personalities too.
It's almost part of the camaraderie.
They're very much individuals in this league.
Yeah.
And it's fun to cover because you get to really see their entire personalities. I think NFL players are a little more robotic and don't really let you in as much. Same with NHL players, are super nice guys, but they're just not quite the outsized personalities that you get in the NBA. And so that's incredibly compelling to write about, and it's always interesting, but it also makes for these really dramatic kind of episodes from season to season that you have to deal with.
Yep. Yeah, and kind of going into football here. This is a hot take, and I'm going to be asking a lot of football people about this, but just let me know your thoughts on this. I think Jameis Winston could be a top 10 quarterback now that he's had LASIK.
Okay, that is a hot take. But hey, I will say this: like, the dude can throw the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, in Tampa, he lit it up in terms of he threw a ton of touchdowns. He makes plays, but he also throws a ton of interceptions as well. And so I think, we did see Favre early in his career throw a ton of interceptions and trying to figure out what he can get away with and what he can't. And as he was able to eliminate a lot of the mistakes, that's when he really ascended from a good player into MVP style. I'm not saying Jameis Winston is Brett Favre, but I do see similarities in the way that they kind of just in their early years said, I'm going to experiment as much as I can and see what I can get away with and what I can't, and learn from that. Now, Favre was able to learn from that and adjust as he went along. We don't know if Jameis is going to be able to do that or not.
Well, especially with the situation in New Orleans, it's right. Breeze and you still Taysom Hill. It could be really weird how it all works out. We could almost be going back to a situation with the Jets back in, I don't even remember what year it was, but you had who were the two quarterbacks that were fighting for the spot? Was it Sanchez and
was it Geno Smith or something else?
Yeah, and it was it was SportsCenter of that for an entire summer, and I could totally see that being like the preseason leading up to the Saints. Is you have all these QBs, and obviously Breeze is the guy, but it's a weird situation.
Yeah, it is. And look, I mean, Taysom Hill's making like $16 million, and Jameis is making 1.5 or something like that. Yeah. And so I will say this: if Breeze were to get injured, I would take Jameis 100 times out of 100 over Taysom Hill. I mean, Hill is a nice gimmick player, and you can run some gadget stuff with him, but I would rather see Jameis drop back and throw the ball over Taysom Hill. So we'll see what happens there. But clearly, Jameis went to New Orleans thinking that there might be an opportunity that comes available to him there, just like Teddy Bridgewater. I mean, Teddy went there, got a few games under his belt, and now he's going to start in Carolina. So maybe that will be the same thing for Jameis, whether it happens actually in New Orleans or for someone else. I think he just wants to get out there and get a chance to prove himself. And clearly he believes that he would get that chance rather than Taysom Hill if something happened to Breeze.
Yeah. You got any hot football takes?
Hot football takes?
Yeah, you got one.
I don't know. I mean, you might agree with this, John. I know you wrote an article on it, but or you might disagree with me on it. I think the Stefan Diggs trade was a good decision.
Well, hey, it kind of bringing it back to the Jimmy Butler discussion a little bit. I think that there's always a risk when you have a player of Stefan Diggs' talent and his age, and you trade him. He was a guy who was ascending into his prime. I think he still has really good years ahead of him, and he was on a contract that was relatively affordable given how good he really is. And so if you're going to trade a guy like that, that is rolling the dice a little bit. I mean, maybe Justin Jefferson will slide right in and they won't miss a beat, but I believe that Diggs is one of the top 8 receivers in the league. along with Adam Thielen. And so if you're trading a commodity of that value, you better get something great back in return. Now, maybe Jefferson is that guy. We'll see. But what was clear to me is that they believed that Stephon Diggs was going to eventually go the Jimmy Butler route if he wasn't traded and didn't get what he wanted. If he was going to continue sending out the cryptic tweets, he was going to continue to not show up at off-season workouts and pitch fits on the sideline and things like that.
It's just the drama again, like an NBA player.
Yeah, I mean, do you think Stephon Diggs was big enough to make a big deal about that stuff? I feel like you have to be really like popular in the league to really make a fit about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah. I don't know that he was at the level that you could say that he earned the right to pitch those kind of fits. But we have all seen generally with the receivers, it doesn't matter. Like, they are the divas of the NFL, and they
always Antonio Brown.
If it's not going the way that they want, they're gonna raise hell. Yep. And so that is one thing that you understand. Now, Diggs helped them win games. I mean, the Denver game last year and several others, he was one of the few in that NFC playoff game against the Niners who looked like he belonged on the field with the Niners and wasn't completely overwhelmed by them. And so he's a really, really good player. But yeah, I mean, I think that what ultimately the Vikings agreed with you is that he's not worth this headache. We're not going to put up with this any longer. So we're going to cut bait while we can before his value is damaged to the degree that we can't get something good in return. And in Rick Spielman's favor, they got a first-round pick for him, and they were able to draft a receiver who fell down the board a little bit. So it looks like it worked out. We'll see how it goes in the long run with how Jefferson works out and what Diggs does in Buffalo. But just a great player that wore out his welcome here.
Yeah. Well, John, before we're wrapping up here, but before we let you go, we want to do a quick rapid fire segment with some crazy hypotheticals, crazy would you rather questions. You ready for some of those?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So, firstly, would you rather spend the rest of your life blind or in an Olive Garden?
I'll take the Olive Garden 10 times out of 10. Those breadsticks are great.
I know,
man.
right? All you can eat. Hell yeah.
Well, and there's cocktails in there too. Remember that
for sure.
TVs,
yeah, of course. It's a no-brainer.
I'm pretty sure.
You can watch basketball. Why not? If you were given an all expenses paid trip to Cleveland, would you take it?
Sure, why not? Again, you can find a watering hole right outside the arena or something and have a good time. If it's all expense paid, I'm a Midwest guy. I'm not going to look down at another Midwest city. Is Cleveland my favorite? No. But if you're going to pay me to go there and party, I'll go there for any time for 100%. Sure.
Yeah, why not? Especially if booze is included.
Well, yeah, it's weird though. We get like split answers with that. Half the people either say, "Yeah, why wouldn't you?" or "No, I'm good."
I'm good. And
Hey, look, we're in Minneapolis. I love it here. It's a great town. We have people looking down at us all the time. I'm not gonna turn that down. I'd go to all expenses paid to Fargo right now. Yeah. If that's what you're doing. So let's do it.
You kind of have empathy for Cleveland in a way. All right, hot dish or casserole?
Hot dish for sure. This is where we grew up. We call it hot dish all the time.
Hot dish. If a movie was made about your life, who would play you?
It's got to be Jon Krawczynski, right?
I didn't even think of that. There's the irony. I love it.
Yeah, there we go.
No doubt.
Would you rather have a head the size of a tennis ball or the size of a watermelon?
I have a large head as it is. It's like a 7 5/8 for a fitted hat. So yeah, it's a big melon. So I've been lugging this thing around for a while. I think I'll stay with what I got.
Cool. Are you a Minneapolis or St. Paul guy?
Minneapolis for sure. St. Paul is a glorified suburb, nothing more.
There's the hot take. I love it.
I went to college at St. Thomas. I have a vast experience at St. Paul, but Minneapolis is where all the action is. So give me that 100 times out of 100.
Cool. All right. In self-defense, how many fifth graders could you fend off at one time?
Well, I have a bunch of nephews, so I have that. I've had experience of that. I'd say at least 5 because I've had some epic wrestling matches with them. And so I put the number at 5. If it got any bigger than that, I might have my work cut out for me.
There you go. You got experience. Yep. Would you rather wear a shirt that's kind of itchy or a pair of shoes that have a pebble in it all the time?
Boy, give me the Pebble, I guess. I hate being itchy, so I'm gonna take the Pebble.
There you go. All right, what's more realistic, ghosts or aliens?
Aliens.
There you go.
Yes, I kind of believe in both of them a little bit, but I think aliens they're definitely are out there and they'll be here before we know it. Yeah. So,
all right, last one. You have one sport to watch the rest of your life. What is it?
It's hoops, man. That's my favorite. I love the fast pace. I love the athleticism. I love the up and down nature of it. So give me a great basketball game, and I'm a happy guy.
Awesome. Well, that will wrap it up. Jon, thank you so much for coming on. Great insight about Timberwolves basketball, some Vikings talk. And again, make sure to check out Jon Krawczynski on The Athletic. Writes great articles. Fantastic. And make sure to donate to the Groveland Food Shelf, www.10000takesmn.com/SodaStream. And podcast Gunpuck Wild is coming up next. Thanks, Jon, again. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me, guys, and thanks for doing this. This is really cool. Great. It's a great cause that you're raising money for, and good on you guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Jon.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, thanks, Jon.
We'll see you later.
Yeah, have a good night.